G'day, I'm the Bin Whisperer, and I've taken it upon myself to bring to you some of the greatest thinkers of our time. I mean, the thoughts these people are having are just extraordinary, because they obviously don't have a brain. I've joined some SJW groups on the old Facebook just to see what's going down Funky Town. And I can tell you, not much. This particular group, white people doing something, or should I say, white women complaining about everything. I've actually been kicked out of this group twice now, and I'm pretty easy to spot because I'm the only one speaking common sense. Anyway, these are some of the posts and the silly comments that these moronic, idiotic people are making. Enjoy.
You're traveling through another dimension, a dimension not only of sight and sound, but of mind. A journey into a wondrous land whose boundaries are those of imagination. Your next stop, the Twilight Zone.
Last night my parents heard violent shouting from the neighbour's house catty corner to ours. They said they heard "you bitch" and kids screaming. They called the police and I didn't say anything but immediately felt uncomfortable because shouldn't we always find alternatives to calling the police? I understand wanting to call someone and not go over there yourself to a possibly dangerous situation. I wouldn't. My parents are not Blue Lives Matter or Back to the Blue people, but like most white people, they feel protected and served by police and truly believe the police are mostly good and there to help. I've had many hard conversations with them about race and social justice, but I doubt I'm going to be able to convince them that calling the police was the wrong move.
Idiot!
Unless there are other resources I can point them to instead. Does anyone know of other resources or have any suggestions on what to do in this situation? Update. It turns out that the people my parents called about wasn't the house I thought it was. They are white people who have a history of volatile behaviour we have seen before. Apparently, whoever my dad spoke to said that someone in that residence was calling the police at the same time. So, no harm done on my parents' end. But still, this brings up an important question, and I appreciate everyone's replies below with other resources and options.
Definitely a hard call to make. I don't call the police unless I'm absolutely certain. The majority of my neighbours are black, and I know all of the immediate ones, many up and down the street. I spend a lot of time outside and I pay attention to the sounds of the neighbourhood. I know who tends to have loud arguments, who yells across the street to friends, who laughs loud, who has kids who shriek when playing. If I hear something that sounds off, I stop and pay attention. Sometimes I'll make noise that I know they can hear, so they know I can hear them as a subtle way of letting them know that I know without putting myself at risk.
Last September on a Sunday morning at 8 a.m, I heard a lawnmower start up next door, which woke me up and I stomped out there to get it to stop. I was not happy. I couldn't tell much about the guy on the lawnmower who was covered head to toe and who cut the engine as I approached and stopped at the edge of my own yard. Long story short, heated words were exchanged, and just as I was about to say I was calling to report the noise disturbance, the guy from the lawn service ripped off his mask and hat and I saw he was black. I went from ticked off and yelling to absolutely terrified for his safety in a microsecond. I stopped mid-sentence and took my angry ass home. I was still mad I didn't get to sleep in, but in no way was it worth whatever the police might do to him if they showed up. I was relieved when he finished and packed up and left without further incident.
Thank you for that. Wait, this was a lawn service, not your actual neighbour. Because in that case, they are hired to do a job and you should take up the noise disturbance with your neighbour, not people just trying to do their job, no matter what race they are. Glad you didn't call, but still, unless I'm reading that wrong. Right, not my neighbour. Clearly, not my finest moment, losing my call in the first place. Thankfully, the service has been coming later since then. I really hate outing myself here, but I'm a police SWAT wife. I'm not afraid of him going on most calls, but I can tell you, I am much more afraid of him going on a domestic violence call than any other type of call. They are relatively unpredictable, volatile, far more dangerous for anyone involved, including the police. One of the last domestic violence calls he went on, he was first on scene after the father brutally murdered his child. I get not involving the police when it's not necessary. I really do. But I would absolutely draw the line after hearing yelling like that and children screaming. And Ariana Stanley Jones murdered by cop at age 8 by bullet and flashbang? Unlike most, I have zero tears for using this to justify any cop. BC, children have a right to be heard and not neglected. Warning signs, I imagine, were wrote off by adults in charge or worse. I've seen it in foster care system firsthand on multiple occasions of social workers taking the word of parents over the child's by default. Instead of begging your parents, fight to lower the voting age to 12 and also show them this. www.aworldwithoutpolice.org.
Get back on your meds, cunt.
Literally, call out. Are you okay? Holler if you need help, and I will help. Then keep an ear out. I do believe is calling the police when life, limb, or liberty is at stake. DV, assault, rape. I've witnessed shoplifting in grocery stores and drug deals in parking lots. I live in a very small southern town that is still self-segregated. I do not call the police in either situation. People are hungry and trying to feed their families. But explaining that to older white people is hard.
Oh, cause some came in the mail today.
Yeah, I did.
These nuts. Got him! Got him!
I believe, regardless of what colour the perpetrator is, if a woman, regardless of her colour, is being attacked, we need to send protection to her. Unfortunately, some cops tend to arrest both the victim and the perpetrator in these situations, and that includes regardless of colour, because there's so much sexism in this world as well. In our community, the victim may be arrested if he has existing outstanding warrants, but not for the actual DV itself. It's just that they can't leave them there knowing there are outstanding warrants from the court. Not taking away from the awful situation, but there may be more than what is seen. I'm friends with closest next door neighbour, which happened to be white progressive couple from Philadelphia. I basically had them promise they would never call the police to help me. The only time I'd appreciate 911 being dialed is for help with a fire or medical emergency.
I'm sure there's two sides to this.
Hey, I hope you like that one, folks. I mean, grow a brain, you fucking peanuts. These women clearly think low of the police, don't they? Men and women of all sexual orientations and religious beliefs out there just trying to protect the community, and you have these grubs online shitting on you. Maybe in the future, if a person is holding one of them hostage with a knife, with any luck, someone calls a fucking social worker so they can rock up with a notepad and pen, eh? I mean, dead set, grow a brain, you numbskulls. And they clearly think lower black people, don't they? They think they're too stupid to conversate with the coppers. They think they're either going to attack them because they can't control themselves and get killed that way, or the cops are going to rock up, stir the pot and piss off, and your black boyfriend's going to fucking kill you. Just reading through the replies, it's a mixture of virtue signalling anecdotal stories of heroism, of never calling the cops on or for blacks, no matter what the circumstances are, or rustling up an old posse and going over there and dealing with the violent domestic yourselves. Which you know is bullshit. You know they'd probably turn up the TV, block their ears and do jack fucking shit. And I think after a quick Facebook stalk of some of these women, it's pretty obvious why they hold such firm opinions. Most of them are carpet munchers, so they don't actually have to deal with men. And the other lot, well, they're partnered up with cuckolded cunts who probably sit in an armchair next to the bed all wild-eyed while she's getting her rocks off with some cunt she met on the internet. Now, you can argue that there were a few POC in the group who wholeheartedly agreed with the premise of the post, which was to never call the police on or for black people, even if they are being fucking murdered. But I would argue that right now you can join a group on the internet and meet someone who is willing to allow you to take a shit in their mouth during intercourse. So nothing fucking surprises me. But like all things, people love to give it large to an audience online, but their convictions rarely ever stand up in the face of reality.
Mate.
Anyway...
You didn't pick up my recycling bin this morning.
Yeah, well, mate, styrofoam isn't recycling. It doesn't belong in the commingle bin.
Well, I know the mayor and I'll be contacting council, mate.
Well, you contact the council, mate. Jesus, fucking residents. That's it from me. Got to get back on the job. I got bins to tip. Until next time.
Angry white man.